The author, David Brooks, has suggested two lenses or attitudes or philosophies that we could bring to life and to this great question of life, which is how shall we live? What is the right way to live our lives? There's probably more than two lenses, but there are two in Brooks's model, so we're gonna run with those this morning. Brooks calls the one lens autonomy, and the other one he calls gifts. And by autonomy, by an autonomy-based lens for one's life, Brooks means that the central question of life is what is going to make me happy? My life is a project or an enterprise that has the goal of generating my own happiness or fulfillment more broadly. And the things that I engage with or don't engage with must meet that goal of my fulfillment. If they do not, I am allowed to discard them or reject them. And when my life becomes too much, because it is a possession, if I don't like it anymore, I'm allowed to dispose of it. That's a thing that I can do. Brooks contrasts this with a model he prefers. Let's just show his hand, and it's a model I prefer as well, which is that of gifts. And in the gifts-based model for understanding life, our lives are the product of this web of relationships. We are the product of our ancestors, of our neighbors, of creation itself, of God. And because we've received all of these gifts from these people and parts of creation, all of these things and people have, as Mr. Rogers would say, loved us into being. We have a duty to respond with our own gifts. We have a duty to repay, to pay it forward. There's a bit of a out-of-date pop culture reference, but that was a big deal 10 or 15 years ago, wasn't it? The notion of paying gifts forward, taking what you've received and giving it to the next generation. This is the campsite rule, isn't it? I'm going to take what I've received and pass it on in as good or ideally better condition than how I found it. I've been thinking a great deal about Brooks's model, autonomy versus gifts, and something Brooks is quick to say, and that I would be quick to agree with, is that folks who have a gifts-based model as their primary lens or attitude towards reality do think that autonomy is excellent. We are in favor of choice. So this is not a rejection of choice. It's good to be to get to decide what to do with your life. It is good to choose things robustly, to freely say yes. So this is not a rejection of choice. It's rather the sense that when autonomy is the preeminent value, when it's the North Star value above all other things, we can end up in a distorted place, a dangerous place. Today we hear from Moses offering this famous choice to God's people. And I've always been struck by this scene. Here they are, they're on the verge of Jordan, they're approaching the Holy Land, this promised land. And Moses, speaking on behalf of God, puts before them these choices, blessing and curse, life and death. And I guess I'm struck by this both because there's something that feels really, I don't know, if you've had a hinge moment in your life where you realize there's a big decision for you, you may recognize this scene. But I'm struck by this as well because every time I hear Moses offer his choices, it feels like you ought not to need a great deal of coaching in order to make your response. Would you prefer blessing or curse? Would you prefer life or death? Why does he need to then go on to say, choose life? Would you rather receive a bag of money or a kick in the pants? Would you rather Would you rather have a birthday cake or a house fire? These are not things that feel like they ought to demand a great deal of deliberation from us, and yet Moses says, and here's the answer. Let me show you the teacher's edition, choose life. So look, why is that? And my hunch about this is that the reason Moses gives us the answer is that the wrong answer, curses and death, come to us often disguised as something virtuous. They come to us disguised as this thing that we want or need. I think it's Paul who famously talks about doing not the thing that he wants. It's this great mystery to him. Like, why am I doing the thing that I hate instead of the thing I want to do? And for all of us who have found ourselves trapped on a phone doing what the kids call doom scrolling minute after minute and hour after hour, like what just happened to the time? I'm not enjoying this, but I keep doing it. You may recognize choosing something that is not life at all. I've thinking about Brooks and thinking about Moses, I've wondered if autonomy as a preeminent virtue is a thing that comes to us disguised as life, but which is actually destruction, which is actually curse, which is actually death. Again, choice is good, but not above all else, not this free agency above all other things. The catalyst for Brooks's article is the horrifying expansion of physician-assisted suicide in my home country of Canada, as well as in the Netherlands. And I should throw in, I've chosen dangerous examples this morning, and I should throw out the caveat before I get started, that often when I speak about euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide, we're so used to hearing binary opinions about a subject like this that folks infer a binary opinion even when I haven't expressed one. And so I will, often folks engage in reflexive storytelling and they will say, I had a loved one who was suffering endlessly with their cancer, and they determined it was clear they were going to die and they had nothing but pain awaiting them, and they chose to end their life, and it was beautiful and good. I have also been present for the death of someone who chose to end their life, whom I loved, and it was beautiful and good. I'm not talking about the scenario in Oregon where life is awful and death is foreseeable, and you get a couple of medical professionals to agree with you. That feels reasonable. What I'm talking about in Canada and the Netherlands is people whose deaths, foreseeable deaths, are years or decades away, and whose primary complaint is depression or poverty or a disability, like they're a wheelchair user and they can't get the help they need. And the reason government has decided that this is okay to euthanize folks in situations like this is autonomy, right? They're in charge of their own lives, and we have to respect the choice they have made. And with autonomy as a preeminent virtue, that makes sense. With gifts as a preeminent virtue, I'm less sure that it does. I think about my duty as a parent, my duty as a friend, my duty as a neighbor, and for me to simply decide that I've had enough of life, I actually think that would be wrong, no matter how clear I was in my personal choice that I wanted my life to be over. I think that there are things I owe to other people, and that has some real moral weight. I think also in saying yes to life, even when there's something hard coming, we're allowing the possibility that God may not yet be done with us. I think I've shared with you before how beautiful the final years and months of my mother's life were, and someone might look at that life from the outside and say, I wouldn't want to live like that. Her dementia was advancing, she was increasingly frail, and yet it was this really special time in many ways. Did I share this in Grace Notes recently? I can't remember. She was able to forgive her father for a decades-old hurt. Something, for some reason, being near the end of her life permitted her to do that in a way that she could not do earlier. I'm glad that she kept on saying yes to those gifts, and she gave us gifts in return. Another way in which I think, I suspect autonomy can become dangerous, and I don't know why I'm saying suspect, because I know this, is in the culture of consumerism, or what someone recently called transactionalism. I'd never heard that turn of phrase before, but I immediately knew what she meant by that. The highest and greatest value is cash changing hands or goods changing hands. That is how we know something is good or valuable. And then again, within an autonomous model, maybe that makes some sense. The value of other people and things is whether I can purchase happiness from them. And if I can, that is good. If I cannot, then I can let them be upon their way. I saw one of the most perverse advertisements I've ever seen on the back of a magazine, and it was for a hotel chain, and it said, "We here at whatever hotel, we believe in the golden rule," and it showed this. Clearly, an employee of the hotel running out with an umbrella to cover out a client in the rain. And I thought, this is consumerism's distortion of the golden rule, isn't it? Because the golden rule at the hotel is treat your neighbor as you wish to be treated for so long as their credit card goes through. This consumerism's added this footnote, this addition to the golden rule that is not present as it is told by Jesus, as it is told by the Buddha, as it is. The golden rule spontaneously arises across cultures, doesn't it, and across time. There's something about it that is useful. Do nothing hateful to your neighbor that is hateful to you. Through the lens of autonomy, we can end up in this place where we understand all of our relationships in this transactional way. Lots of folks, okay, here's a second dangerous example. Lots of folks have done really important things in therapy. Lots of folks have done really important things through self-help work. These things are excellent. And I am concerned that as the language of self-help has expanded across our culture, we've elevated the language of boundaries to this point where we are willing to reach for cutoff early and often. We're willing to sever relationships very easily indeed. Sometimes you're in an abusive situation and you do indeed need to exit that situation for your own safety and for the dignity of everyone. Sometimes a marriage has died and you need to name that. I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about this almost reflexive capacity to I heard someone in an article talk about leaving a friendship because it's no longer serving me. That is an autonomy-based lens for a friendship. I don't actually owe anything to my friend. The history that we have together is not a meaningful one. Rather, we are together so long as I am being served by that friendship. And that feels very problematic indeed. Something Andre said in his class, it's a theme he kept returning to in his book group this summer, was the theme of remaining in conflict. And he said that when we retreat too soon or too readily from conflict, we deprive ourselves of the opportunity to grow. We could say when we choose an autonomy lens as opposed to a gift lens, we deprive ourselves of these opportunities to grow. I've been meditating on that a great deal since he said that. One more example, maybe a less fraught one than the first two, is how we engage with creation itself. when we approach God's creation with an autonomy lens, with the lens of my own happiness and my own fulfillment, we're going to treat the world differently than when we understand ourselves as creation giving us these gifts which we must reciprocate. Phoebe and I and the children went to Barkerville this summer. Do you know where Barkerville is? It's a gold rush town in central British Columbia, which probably occupies an oversized place in my imagination and my history. I went there as maybe an 8-year-old, and I hadn't been there since. I'm no longer 8. So returning to a place you'd been as a child, there's something, I don't know, there's something a little magic about that. Barkerville, it's fascinating you've never heard of it, because there's a data point in the Welcome Center that in its heyday in the 1960s, it was the largest settlement, 1860s, thank you, what did I say? Not in the 1960s. No, you would have heard of it if it was in the 1960s. In its heyday in the 1860s, I spend quite a bit of time just putting arbitrary words into sentences, and Phoebe's role in my marriage is to notice that you've just substituted a word that no longer makes your sentence make any sense. It made sense in my head. So anyway, I'm glad she's here too. In Barkerville's heyday in the 1860s, it said in the Welcome Center, it was the largest settlement west of Chicago and north of San Francisco. Like, isn't that's a lot of cities that, if you look at a current map, are west of Chicago and north of San Francisco. Anyway, it was in its time a big deal, and returning to it was wonderful. It's this beautifully preserved Victorian town, gold rush town. Even though it's in Canada, you could sort of imagine Clint Eastwood walking down the street, and it's glorious to be there. And the ecological degradation around it is startling. The stuff that folks did to the mountains and the streams in the name of getting the gold out of the ground. Not far from the town, there's a sign by this kind of bucolic river. It's a location that calls out to have a picnic, and the people who put up the signs are aware of that because they said, don't hang out here. Thanks to the mining over the years, the river is filled with arsenic. This is not a place to spend time, and this is the legacy of understanding reality through this autonomous lens. I need to all of these folks invited to take care of themselves. And I want to be clear, I'm not casting aspersions on the individuals who made the trek to Barkerville in the hopes of a better life. Many of them were in desperate situations. I am critiquing a system that thinks of people as autonomous individuals as opposed to being part of a web of gifts. I bet we could keep on plugging in examples of using Brooks's model. What if, excellent though choice is, excellent though autonomy is, the thing to which we are deeply called is to remember that we are this gift of God, that we are this gift from our ancestors, that we are this gift of creation. We are only here because of other people, and we have this duty to carry the torch for a while, and then this invitation, duty is a heavy word, this beautiful invitation to pass it forward. What if this is what Moses is talking about as he entreats the Israelites on behalf of God before the promised land? I set before you curses and blessings. I set before you death and life. And the curses and the death, it comes disguised as stuff that looks great. So be careful. Listen to the body of Christ. Listen to Jesus and choose life.